Facebook. I just hit the record button, and I'm with this is Jason Morris with Real Estate Agents That Really Work, and I'm with Brian Howard this morning. And Brian is a full-time wholesaler from Greenville, South Carolina. And for agents that might not know what a wholesaler is, can you tell us what you do, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, the basics of it is I market through different channels, either through postcards or cold calling or, whatever, internet. And people will call me. And what I do is I try to find a seller that needs to get rid of a property quick. They're having some kind of a problem. And, maybe the house is in bad shape. And so I get a contract to purchase the property, and then basically I just assign it to someone else most of the time. And so at the closing, then I'll receive an assignment fee for the difference between what my buyer buys it at and what my seller is selling at, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever it ends up being.
So what you're really doing is you're selling your contract, or selling your right to buy the property, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not selling the house.
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody understands that you're and to do this, you don't have a real estate license. You don't have to have one, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because I'm not selling real estate. I'm selling a contract.
Yep, that's right. Now, so how did you get started in this?
Honestly, I heard about it the first time back in 2008. I think there was some kind of seminar down in Atlanta that I heard about it at. It took me a little while for it to really catch on because I just didn't understand it. And honestly, the first 2 or 3 years I was doing it, my parents didn't get it when I tried to explain it to them either. They're like, that doesn't make sense. So you're a realtor? And I'm like, no. And so, really it was 2012 that I really started taking it seriously. I put out bandit signs on the weekends when it was legal to do so. And I started getting a couple of deals that way. And then I realized that was too much of a hassle. So I just started doing postcards. And that's how I've done most of my deals, is through postcards to absentee owners or tax delinquent or whatever.
So for a lot of agents probably don't know what bandit signs are, because as real estate agents, we don't do this at all. We don't do bandit signs at all, and it's but basically what we're doing is what you're doing is you're taking it's basically a We Buy Houses sign, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what my sign said. We buy houses, cash, and then my phone number.
Yeah, no kidding. So let me ask you, when you were doing that, like, we still see some of them here in my county, in Horry County. And for you guys that don't know, I'm in Horry County, which is close to the coast, and Brian is in Greenville, which is like the opposite end of the state for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And here, I'm pretty sure they're not they're not legal here, at least not in the city. But still, like out in the country part of the county, I see a lot of them. But those worked pretty well for you, didn't they?
They did for a while. Yeah, I was putting out probably 75 to 100 on the weekends. And I was working at Papa John's delivering pizzas at the time when I first started. And so I'd put them out Friday night after I got done with work, and I'd pick them up Sunday night. So they'd only be out for 2 days. I'd probably get a deal, maybe 2 a month from that. But they stopped working as well. I was starting to get 2 or 3 calls a weekend, which really isn't even a deal a month. And so I stopped doing them because it's a lot of work. It probably took me 3 hours a weekend to put them out and put them back up, or put them up and take them down.
Now where you're different than real estate agents is when you're talking about took you more than 2 or 3 calls a weekend to get a deal. Your deal has to have a spread, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, because I need to have my purchase contract, significantly lower than what I can sell it for. I mean, back then I was doing, maybe $3,000 to $5,000 on a deal. So I'd get something under contract. Mostly it was junk mill houses, little 2-bedroom houses, and they were in horrible shape. And I'd get them under contract for maybe $10,000 and sell them for 13 or 14, something like that.
Yeah, and these are in kind of the rundown areas of Greenville, right?
Right. Yeah, the old cotton mill neighborhood
houses. Yeah, they're not big pretty houses.
No. There was a stuff that most of the time, they could list it, but generally they're going to get the same buyers as I'm talking to. So investors that want to buy it and fix it up and rent it, or Yeah.
So now you said when you started that you were delivering pizzas for Papa John. So how much money did you start this business with?
I think it's 300 bucks I put into bandit signs. I think I
That's
bought
it.
like 150 bandit signs and I started putting them out, and that was about it.
Because really, the only money you're putting in a deal is just enough to tie it up with the contract. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. And I only use $100 deposit. So I'm not investing any money into other than my marketing. Now my marketing is a significant cost, but back then when I was just doing bandit signs, I'd have someone steal a few every week, but other than that, there wasn't any cost.
Yeah, we got a question here from Arian Williams. They're asking how much money are you spending today on marketing per month?
Well, postcards are about 40 cents. Um, and I actually have cold callers now. I kind of consider that my marketing costs. I'm paying him about $2,000 a month. That's just part time. I pay him 20 bucks an hour. Um, and so I would guess probably 6,000 a month.
No kidding. Right now, you're spending 6,000 a month.
Yeah.
Wow. So I want to I hear agents in my coaching and agents in my group real estate agents that really work, and they start talking about wholesaling and stuff. And I get it that we're going after some of the same sellers here, but I want agents to understand this isn't easy, is it?
No, no. Yeah, I always tell
I mean,
people that are new in
it's
the
work.
business trying to get into wholesaling, I said, it's simple, but it's not by any means easy. That's why there's, thousands of people that go to seminars on how to wholesale, and probably 1% of them actually, follow through and do it.
Of course. So we got another question here. It's from Suzanne Eckersley. If your sign says "We buy homes," but you only sell the contract, how are you convincing the seller that you can sell the home or close on the home?
Well, I can. I mean, I guess I couldn't back then, but I had investors that I knew personally that I worked with that would actually. I had one couple that probably bought 60% of my deals, um, and so I knew what they were going to pay for them, and so I said, me and my partners will be closing on this property. So, they didn't buy it. I knew I could. I know I could sell the contract to someone else.
Yeah. So how many deals are I'm just going down through the list of questions now. I had some other stuff I want to talk about before we get to questions, but we're getting I don't know if you can see them or not, but we're getting quite a few. Um, so Marion asked, how many deals are you closing a month?
Um, well, it's gone up and down a bit. This last year, I've closed fewer deals, but they've been bigger. I had one deal where I made about 28,000. Some of them were in the mid to high teens, and then this one, obviously, I made just shy of 60. Um, in the past, I have done probably, I think my highest was 9 in a month, but they were $2,000 to $5,000 deals. So really, it's kind of hit and miss, especially since I'm kind of a solo guy. I'm working on building up a team to run a lot of the day-to-day operations, and then it'll probably be a little more consistent. But
Yeah,
on average, probably 2 deals a month.
2 deals a month at
That's the
somewhere.
short answer.
What kind of average profit? Like somewhere in the mid-teens?
Oh man, it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of
probably.
hard to say.
I
I
mean,
mean,
if you take this big deal out of the equation,
now,
probably
now,
closer to
let's
10.
talk about that real quick because I know about it, but I don't think anybody else listening knows about it. So you closed one, was it yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, technically it closed on the 26th. I had to sign something yesterday, and so that's when I got the check.
And it was and the check I think I seen was $73,000.
Yeah, and that was gross. Well, gross after paying the realtor, but my net was about 59.
About 59,000. Wow. So your ROI, that $6,000 a month you're spending, you're getting a pretty good return on that money, aren't you?
Oh yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, I probably net. I mean, even I probably net a little over 100,000 after all the expenses. So
Yeah, that's pretty good. You know, I think that a lot of agents look at wholesalers and they think that, hey, I'm going to jump into this business. I can make more money per deal and do less. But let me ask you this: I've seen this in my market. do you have a problem sometimes getting paid or getting the seller to follow through with you?
The seller, very rarely. Um, I've had more problem with buyers sometimes, but the seller, I've only had maybe two or three back out after the contract was signed. And actually, one guy actually paid me for my time. That was kind of a surprise. He paid me $200 because he felt bad about backing out. But I had one that I had already assigned, and I was going to make 10,000 on, and he backed out the day after I got it assigned. So I was disappointed by that one. But like I said, I've done over 100 deals, and I've had two or three back out. So it's a very small percentage.
No kidding. And Courtney asked here, and I want to be clear, Brian is not a real estate agent. Brian's
No.
just going out there, working his butt off, finding deals that make sense to him, and he's selling the contract and collecting a fee somewhere in the middle. Um,
Hmm.
and guys that are listening to this, if you're thinking about doing this in your market or somewhere, with a real estate license, guys, talk to an attorney, disclose, and
Hmm.
sometimes with real estate agents, there's a little bit of gray area there with wholesaling. Um, just depend on your market and your state. But Brian, do you ever have any problems with that? Like people mistaking you for a real estate agent, or the sellers or even buyers not quite understanding what you're doing?
No, because I portray myself as an investor, which is really what I am. Because I mean, I do close on some of them, and so I'm a little bit vague with the sellers as to what my exit strategy is, because a lot of times I don't know, when I'm getting a contract, if I'm going to assign it, if I'm going to close on it and list it and resell it, if I'm going to buy it and rent it. And so I am a little bit vague, but whatever I do on the exit strategy, it doesn't really matter to the seller because they're getting the same exact amount and the same, I'm following the restrictions of the contract either way.
Of course, you're just doing what you're agreeing to do,
Right,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
That's it. That's
And
it.
they don't care who the end buyer is. I mean, sometimes it'll be, if I get a low end deal, I'll flip it to a Hispanic family that's going to fix it up and move into it. And they don't care as long as they get their money.
Yeah. Now the end buyer on these things, I've seen this here. I got a lot of friends that are wholesaling and stuff like that, and I got a friend of mine here. He told me one of the things he was doing originally was he, built him a little website and he was putting deals that he was closing up there on the website. And he said, and he was actually closing on some of them, and the ones he was closing on, he was lease optioning. And
Oh
the
yeah.
problem is he was like disclosing everything online, what he paid for, which is in the tax records. You know what I mean? Uh,
Right.
it's all public record. And he said, man, he said, next thing he knew, he started having people that he'd done lease options with calling him up, and they're either wanting to beat him down on price, or they're upset because he paid $50,000 for the house and his contract with them was 80,000. Do you ever see anything like that or have any problems like that?
From my buyers, I do some seller finance and things like that. I haven't done any lease options, but no, I haven't had any problems with my buyers being upset
Yeah.
about the price.
Yeah, well, here in our state, I don't know if you know that this or not, but I've been through this recently. We're in the state of South Carolina now. If you do a rent to own or a lease option, and
Uh-huh.
they quit paying you, it used to be you could just evict, right?
Right.
And but there was a case that just went through the South Carolina Supreme Court about a year, maybe 2 years ago, and you cannot evict now. You got to actually foreclose on them, even if it's rent to own.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, for me, it depends on the judge. There's one guy in Greenville that will just evict him, but from what I've heard from other people, yeah, most judges will not. They'll make you foreclose.
Yeah, a lot
But
of people don't quite understand that either. The magistrates, and I'm assuming it's like this all over the country, but I can tell you from personal experience here in South Carolina, depending on the magistrate you go to, a magistrate judge isn't necessarily has never necessarily been an attorney and practiced law. Lots of times they were
hmm.
appointed. A lot of people don't understand that. Sometimes you go to judge number one over here, and he's got one set of eviction rules he follows, and judge number two has a completely different set of eviction rules they follow.
Right.
And
Yeah, this one guy that I like to work with, I'm very fair with my rent to own, tenants or tenant buyers. I give them, once they've stopped paying for a month and a half, I say you can either catch up or else I'll pay you basically half a month's rent if you can move out in 2 weeks. So I offer to pay them to move out, and he really likes it. He thinks that's being very fair, and so he doesn't give them a lot of leeway on
That's
things
extremely
because he
fair.
feels like I'm already being fair with them, so he doesn't feel like he needs to.
Let me
Um,
ask you, have you ever had any like go through the eviction and then they try to appeal the eviction?
um, I mean, they come to court and they complain to the judge. And then I have had one that got an attorney involved, and they're still there. So I haven't tried to fight them on it because they always catch up.
Yeah.
If they didn't have the attorney, I probably would have kicked them out by now. But um, I don't want to go through that hassle. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's kind of every now and then it's like it doesn't matter how well you screen, you get one or two that's bad every once in a while.
yeah, it seems like it.
So so let me ask you, how do you estimate repairs and just become I guess how do you estimate? Let's see. The question is, how do you estimate repairs? How do you become proficient in your estimations? And are you using some type of formula?
Um, for me, it was just kind of trial and error. When I first started, I would just kind of guess, and that's what one of my mentors told me to do. He said, you know what, don't spend too much time trying to figure that out because each investor is going to spend a different amount. They're going to
Of
fix it up
course.
a little bit nicer, a little bit less for a rental, and so I've learned a lot just walking through the houses with buyers, investors that are looking at the house, and they say, oh, it's going to cost this much, it's going to cost this much. And so it's really just been trial and error. And I still am, I'm not a rehabber. I don't fix up houses at all. And so it's still just really kind of a guess for me, but it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, I've learned that too. Just like I like mobile homes, and even that I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she was asking me. She goes, "Well, how much do you put in like an average mobile home before you rent it out to somebody?" And I said, "Well, I said, I kind of went through my process and said, single wide, a couple $1,000." And she goes, "Oh my God!" She goes, "The last one I did, I put 15,000 in it." But what she was telling me she done, she probably got more rent than what I would be getting. However, I mean, she literally, there's only so much rent you're going to get for a certain house or certain neighborhood. You know what I mean? And
Right.
where I was fixing up, so it was a clean, safe place to live. Right? People would go
Right.
in, they weren't going to be embarrassed if they had company come over, wasn't going to fall through the floor. It was a clean, safe place to live that was, extremely, extremely affordable. Where her, on the other hand, she was fixing it up like something that she was going to move into herself.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's tough to guess. Some of these guys, you see what they're doing, and you're like, oh my God, are you really doing that? Um,
Right.
are you really going to do all of that? And
Hmm.
it's kind of, uh, it's kind of absolutely, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of very crazy what you see sometimes.
Right.
I got Josh Hunt here. He said he's 21. He doesn't quite know all the real estate lingo. And I'm going to talk to somebody who has a pre-foreclosure property soon. I do have investors. How should I go about doing my first deal?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know much about pre-foreclosure. I mean, I guess it'd be the same as what I'm doing. Pre-foreclosure, a lot of times there's payments that are due, but it, I would probably work with a local investor in the area. If you're just starting from scratch, I would try to partner up with an investor. That's what I did. I mean, I just tried to make myself valuable to the other investor, whether it's through bringing them deals first, or maybe take them out to lunch sometimes. I tell people all the time, hey, if you want to learn this business, take me out to lunch. I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Of course.
Or just what you want to do is bring value to someone who can help you. Don't just go to someone and say, I need help, because I mean, maybe someone would be kind and help you out, but um, anyway, but yeah, find a local investor that you can work with, and they can, they'll probably buy it from you, and they can tell you exactly what they're going to pay for it, and then you can put it under contract for a little bit less. Maybe just try to make a couple thousand on your first deal, just to get that experience and make a little bit of money for marketing. And yeah, that's how I would go
Of
about it.
course. I see that too with some of these guys that are wholesalers. They try to hit a home run on the very first deal.
Right.
And like I had a guy call me the other day, wanted to sell me this little single wide. It was in a park where it may have to be moved, may not have to be moved. And he tells me on the call that he's got it under contract for 6,000. He wants to sign it to me for 16,000.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, wait a second here, and we might have to move it, and
Right.
yeah, I see that with a lot of these wholesalers. There was one a while back. I had a friend of mine. He was looking at buying a mobile home park, and so we go out, and take a look at this park, and somehow or another, this guy that brought it to us, he wasn't very clear that he was a wholesaler. The
Uh-huh.
way he pitched it to us was that he was a partner, right?
Okay.
And anyway, he's talking about $700,000 for it. It was about 90 lots. And there was about anyway. It was a pretty good deal. We were averaging a little less, about $8,000 a lot. Plus, there was a lot of homes that were going to come with it, and there was a lot of them that had been abandoned. So there was a tremendous upside to this,
Uh-huh.
and we go look at the park with the guy. The guy walks us around and never hints around that he's he's got a contract or anything. And anyway, we after we look at everything, the guy that I was there with, he goes, "Hey, how about if we get some lunch?" And so the guy goes to lunch with us, and in the middle of eating a piece of fried chicken, the guy goes, "Well, yeah, it's 700,000, but I want to add my fee of 100,000 on top of it." Me and him are sitting there, and we're going, wait a second, wait a second. You walked us around the community, and you want to give us 100 grand? It turned out he had no contract, no anything whatsoever. And
Wow.
then after we talked for a little bit, it turned out he was a wholesaler. He talked to this guy on the phone. This was his very first deal he was trying to do. Um, and man, he rather than going through the process, he was trying to hit a home run. And my buddy that I was there with was very clear about he was not going to get 100 grand on top of 700,000. But anyway,
Right.
it didn't work out anyway. So but yeah, a lot of these what I've learned too is a lot of these guys that are wholesalers like yourself, most of you guys are pretty friendly, and most of you are pretty giving as far as like, hey, spending 20 minutes like today. I messaged you through Facebook. I've been following you for a while. Messaged
Uh-huh.
you through Facebook, and we set up this call today.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been most wholesalers and investors are fairly friendly and easy to deal with, and
Yeah.
generous with their time.
Yeah, exactly. I do get some people that get mad, especially lately. I've been doing more of a bidding system when I sell a deal, especially if it's vacant and I've got some time. And so some people get upset because I don't just take their offer on the spot.
Of
When
course.
I clearly say in my advertising I'm going to take the highest offer by this date.
Yeah.
And so I do get some people that get mad at me because of that. But I'm very nice. I'm like, okay, I'll take that offer. And um, but yeah, I'm an open book as far as helping people out, and I don't really hold anything back as far as secrets or anything. I don't really see other realtors or wholesalers or investors as my competition. I feel like we're all in this kind of together.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
and
so
not
much
that we don't
business out
compete on
there.
the same property sometimes, but we can also, I think we can help each other out a lot more than we're going to hurt each other by competition.
Now let me ask you about that. How do you see, like me as a real estate agent, how do you see real estate agents working with wholesalers? How do you see that happening, or us working together?
Well, I've just started working with real estate agents. In the past, I've just wholesaled directly to buyers. But with this deal and following deals, I'm actually working on a deal that I'm going to buy in the next couple of weeks, and I'm gonna list it and resell it. It's a nice house in a nice neighborhood, but it's got some definite work that needs to be done. But I'm going to start listing properties with realtors. Actually, this one, my highest offer from a buyer off of my buyer's list was 67,000, and a realtor brought in a buyer at 77,000.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to pay 3% to to get
Yeah.
an extra 10,000.
Yeah.
So
You know,
As long as that offer from the realtor is going to net me more, and I'm happy to work with the realtor.
that's something that I've talked about some with just random things and lead generation ideas with coaching clients is that a lot of these guys like yourself, you know, you're getting, like you said a minute ago, just off the bandit signs you were doing a while back, you're getting 3 or 4 calls a weekend. Well, that's 3 or 4 people that are taking the initiative to call somebody off a We Buy Houses sign, right? So
Right.
those people are probably, they either have some motivating factor that's out there in the world, whether they're trying to move up or down, or they got a problem, or something's happening where they're going, hey, you know what? We should move our family out of this house and sell it to somebody.
Uh-huh.
I mean, something's happened in their life. So that's a, it may not be a deal that works for you, but that's a solid lead for a real estate agent.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You
And
know,
yeah, definitely.
that was something that I talked about. Over the years, I've had a lot of wholesaler guys I've worked with and stuff, and some of them, it'd be as simple as, hey, pulling some comparables for them, talking about a market, a community, a neighborhood, or something that, maybe I'm familiar with it and they're really not familiar with it. Um, sometimes I got one friend of mine that he calls me every so often, and this guy, man, it doesn't matter how many times I tell him, he just does not get the whole. He's done a lot of deals, man. He's probably like yourself. He's probably done 100 deals, but he does not get the financing end of
Right.
real estate stuff. He'll find buyers for his property and have 2 or 3 deals to fall through, and he just doesn't get it. And it's like, dude, you're advertising this as 100% USDA financing, and it's not in a USDA area.
Right.
They cannot get it's just crazy random stuff like that. But yeah, there is a lot. I feel like there's a lot of benefits to networking with people that are wholesalers.
Right. I think so too.
I think one of the problems, I think you guys getting into the wholesale industry is the same as the real estate industry. The barrier to entry is not very high.
Right.
And so there's a lot of burnout. There's guys that have tried for 6 months. They go spend $300 on their signs. They spend a few $100 on their mailers. 2 or 3 months, 4 months go by. They don't get a deal, and they go, "Oh, screw this. This doesn't work."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I probably I've tried to. I told you the take me out to lunch and I'll tell you whatever I want, whatever you want. And I probably had 15 people take me up on that offer, and I think 2 of them are still doing it. So
I see that too. And even with what you're doing, I see this happen. I see this happen here in my market. Some of these new guys just getting into wholesaling and find a deal, then they wholesale it to another wholesaler who actually finds the end buyer. I see
right.
that. I see some of that goes on in my market. I used to see a lot of the foreclosure auctions, people bidding at the foreclosure auction, getting a property, and then assigning their bid like the next day. I saw a lot
Uh-huh.
of that. I was as a real estate agent, I brokered a lot of those deals. I had a lot of friends that were showing up at the auctions, and the auctions were brutal. Sometimes it was easier to look at the results list the next day and try to make a deal with the person who got the bid rather than show up and bid yourself.
Right.
I've seen a lot of stuff like that. So I got a few more questions for you, man. I don't want to take up
Sure.
your whole morning, but one of the questions was, um, when you're calling, who exactly are you calling? Do you have these people just calling the entire neighborhoods?
No, I call a few different lists. One list is kind of a broad list that I call is just absentee owners. So people that own property that don't live in the property. That includes vacant lots. I call tax delinquent, people that haven't paid taxes or the properties are on the list to go to the tax sale. Um, uh, Houses that are going through probate.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. And actually, my favorite list is I hire someone I pay him $1 a lead to go around and take pictures of abandoned looking houses or houses that are in really rough shape.
Yeah.
And then we'll call them.
And those are great. Those are great leads too. I've talked with my agents about that too. Is that man, those abandoned houses where the grass is waist high is I mean, those are fantastic because somebody's just not living there, and somebody's
Right.
just. I mean, they're in after a while without electricity on and heat and air and all that stuff, the house literally starts rotting from the inside.
Right. And people start breaking into it and stealing the pipes and the air conditioner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I had one not long ago that I got from a guy. It was a double wide, and somebody had went in there and they'd stole just enough wire out of the walls to be a pain in the ass.
Right.
They went around to every outlet and it looked like they pulled the outlet out and pulled the wire up maybe 4 feet from the outlet, you know? So they stole probably a total of 50 feet of wire, just enough to be
Right.
a pain in the ass and make you have to go through the inspection process and do sheetrock work. Dude, I would have rather just paid them for the 50 feet of wire.
Right.
You
Just
know?
leave it $20 on the door.
Yeah, exactly, man. Don't steal the air conditioner. I'll give you $150 for it. That's all you're going to
Right.
get when you scrap it, too. Yeah,
Right.
some guys worked really hard and they might have got, they didn't get much. They might have got $10 worth of copper, maybe.
Right.
I mean, if
It's
that.
crazy.
So it's kind of crazy, but the place had sat empty for a while, and you probably remember this a few years ago. Copper prices were going crazy.
Right.
So people
Hmm.
would steal all the copper in a house, and they get $200 worth of copper, and it cost you 3,000 to replace it all.
Right.
I had one I sold a while back, and it was a similar situation. Somebody went into their house and stole all the copper pipes and all the copper from under the house. And what we did was it was a probate deal, and the family. It's funny story. The family thought I was related to them, and I mean, I'll tell you, like they look like people that were related to me. But they wanted to get a fair market value for it. But
Right.
without pipes and electrical, you can't get financing for it. Even if we back those numbers out, I mean, the place was worth say $120,000, and if we backed out the HVAC was stolen, the plumbing and the electrical, we were probably talking about $15,000-$16,000 worth of stuff stolen.
Right.
And even if we back that out and say put it on the market for 100,000 in that area, there was not going to be a buyer for 100,000
No,
that
not to have to
that
go through all that.
needed
They'd rather
cash. You
pay.
know what I mean?
Right. They'd rather
So,
pay 120 and have it all fixed up nice.
of course, I'll tell you what we did though. We put it on the market, and we put it on the market, and we disclosed that these things were missing, and we also put in there, seller will replace before closing. And what I did was I called plumbers, electricians, HVAC people. Turned out I knew a guy that done all three, and what I told him was, hey man, this is what we want to do. Most of these guys that are building houses, they're used to waiting on a draw, right?
Uh-huh.
They're used to completing and waiting 3 to 5, 7 days to get a draw. So what I did was I went to him and I said, hey man, I got this house. This is what it needs. Can you give us a price on doing it? But here's the deal. We want to get a contract, and after the appraisal's done, generally after the appraisal's done, more than likely it's going to close. There's
Right.
like, unless something really, really serious happens, but more than likely the appraisal is going to be the last thing. And usually here after the appraisal's done, we got maybe 5 days and we got a closing.
Right.
So I explained that to him, and I said, my sellers are willing to guarantee you get paid, and you get paid from closing, but they don't have the money to pay you like today, and they don't want to put it in today because the house is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. They didn't want to get stolen again.
Right.
So we worked out a deal with him when we put it on the market, and he gave us a price and a quote and said, hey, this quote's good for 90 days. And we got a contract on it, and as soon as the appraisal was done, this guy, it took him 3 or 4 days to get it all in, and the appraiser come back and he appraised it contingent on those things being done, and then it costed another $100 for the appraiser to come back out again, and we closed it, and the buyer got all new plumbing, electrical, and HVAC.
Excellent.
So there's a lot of ways to make a deal. Like if you
Right.
think about it and you get kind of creative sometimes. There's,
Right.
al-
Exactly.
there's almost always a deal. I had one a while back where the price they wanted wasn't a very good price, but they were willing to own or finance it, and they were willing to do it with no interest.
Right. Well, that's great.
So all of a sudden, we went from a deal that the price really sucked. It wasn't a deal you could buy, on Monday and sell on Tuesday, but it was a deal that, hey, you could buy it, and you could buy the deal and you could wait, you know, a year or 2 years, pay it down some, and then you got some equity, you know.
Right, exactly.
But
Actually, this big deal I just did, that one he wanted 20,000, or he wanted 32,000, and I offered him 20. And so I just offered to make him payments and do seller financing, and that's how we got started. Um,
so that big deal that you just closed, where you made a very nice paycheck. Um, how long would you say it was from the first time you talked to that guy till you actually made a deal with him?
3.5 years.
You followed up with
Well,
him 3.5 years?
well, that's how long it took till today. Yeah, I started um, late spring, early summer 2015.
Wow. So, and it was just constant follow up, every few weeks?
Yeah, well, here's what happened. We agreed to a deal back then in 2015, and he had sold the property seller financing to a father and son. Now the father died, and the son went into prison. And so the son signed his half back over to the seller, and the father died, and no one ran probate in the family. And um, so his attorney was trying to fix up the title, and he just wasn't really doing anything. It was a friend of his, and I don't think he really knew what to do. So so fast forward 3 years of me just following up with him. I'd call him probably every month or two, just to see how things were going, and I kept building rapport with them, and so we had a good relationship. And last, I don't know, it was probably May or June. He said, "You know what? I'm giving up. I'm just going to let it go to the tax sale." He was tired of paying taxes on it. It was like $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so he said, "I'm going to let it go to the tax sale." And so I said, "Well, why don't you sign it over to me?" And he had a mortgage against the property for the seller financing to the father. And I said, "Sign over the mortgage so I have some leverage to work on this. And when it's all done, I'll pay you $9,000, which is much better than he wouldn't get anything at the tax sale, you
Yeah, it's
know."
going to be zero.
Yeah. So he was like, "Well, I got nothing to lose," and and I said, I'll catch up the taxes, I'll pay the attorney to fix it up, and so I put in let's see. So he just signed it over to me, so it was mine free and clear, and we did sign a sheet of paper that said I'll pay him 9,000, but he was just trusting me on that.
Of course.
And so I hired an attorney here in Greenville and and told him the situation. There was the son that had signed his portion over, but he signed over all of his rights to the property. And there was one other granddaughter of the guy who had died. And so I just told them the situation. I said, "There's a $50,000 mortgage against this property, and you only own really like a quarter." Um, and they didn't even own that yet because it still hadn't gone through probate. I
Yeah.
said, "What I'll do is I will pay you X amount." I ended up paying them 1,700. We kind of went back and forth a bit. They initially wanted 5,000, and I said, "I'll pay 1,000," because they wouldn't get anything if we could have just foreclosed on it.
Of course.
But it would have taken me an extra couple of months, and I just wanted to get it done. So I said, I'll pay you 1,700, and you just sign a quick claim to sign it over to me so that we don't have to go through a foreclosure. And so early December, I got all of that cleared up, and I listed it. I did a flat fee listing with a realtor, and it ended up being that realtor brought me the buyer. So they got the flat fee listing plus, I don't know, $3,000 or something.
No kidding. So, with an average deal that you have, how much follow up are you having to do?
Not that much.
Yeah, I mean
um,
that was kind of extreme, but
I would say most of the time, um, probably just a handful of times. But honestly, I'm on all my best deals. Usually, it takes a little bit more. And a lot of times that's when all the other guys have fallen off. Um, all the competition will say.
of course.
Um, so yeah, I probably have to follow up for most deals, maybe 2 or 3 times before I can get a contract. And I mean, sometimes I say, oh, can I come take a look at it this afternoon? And they say, yeah, and we'll sign a contract that afternoon. But they're not all that easy.
Yeah. Of course, the bigger ones take more follow up, don't they?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this one definitely took a lot of work. But most of it was just following up with them. I had to drive down to Georgia to get the contract signed, but that's probably the most work I put into it, was driving, 6 hours to go get the contract.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So I got just a couple other quick questions for you, man. So how long did it take you to go from doing this part time to you're a full time wholesaler now, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
How long did it take you to go from part time to full time?
Um, well, the first time I was working at Papa John's, so I wasn't making a lot. So, you make a couple, 3, 4, $5,000 wholesale fees, it replaces your income really quick. And
Yeah,
so I quit after about 6 months, but I ended up slacking off a bit, and I ended up having to go back for another year. But 2014 is the last time I had a job. So
I see.
um,
I see a lot of
I
agents
started
that
in
do that same thing.
2012.
Yeah, they get started, they get a couple of deals under their belt, get some money in the bank, and they quit their job they had, which is fantastic. So they can do real estate full time, but then you know, turns out they just kind of hang out. They
Right,
quit working. Once they
right,
quit their full time job, they quit working altogether,
right.
and yeah, and then they end up having to go back and forth. I see a lot of agents having to do that. It's very similar business and mindset. And let me ask you about that, your mindset. You know, I know it's a tough business. Real estate in general is just a tough business. Um, what keeps you going? Like when you have those deals that fall apart, you have those deals like you mentioned that one that you you got a contract to wholesale it the next day, and you're going to make 10 grand, and the seller backed out on you. Um, what keeps you going? What makes you say, "Hey, we're gonna keep doing this next week"?
Well, I know I don't have anything to go back to. I mean, I'd have to change my lifestyle up quite a bit to go back to Papa John's.
Of
Um,
course.
After making 100,000 a year the last couple of years, going back to making 30 or 40,000, I just know there's not another avenue for me. I've never really been much of a career guy. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was selling stuff door to door, and that's just always been my heart. So I just know that there's no other option that I want. And real estate I think it's fantastic. I mean, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate that if I
Yeah.
don't like what I'm doing now, I can just switch it up and I can do something else in real estate. And I've got enough knowledge because I've been in the business and I've been around some really high players. I know I could learn something different if I wanted to do rehabs, which I don't. If I wanted to do commercial, or if I wanted to buy apartment buildings, I know I could figure it out. And
Of
so
course.
I just know real estate is a great way to make money. So I don't ever question it.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So anybody that wanted to get started doing this right now, and this is my last question for you. Anybody that want to get started doing this, what advice would you give them?
Um, I would say, there's a lot of free podcasts out there. I really like the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. There's some other good ones out there. I would start listening to podcasts. That's how I learned. I mean, I was delivering pizzas. I wouldn't listen to music. Actually back then I don't think they had podcasts, at least not that I knew of, back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah, not like
Um,
today for sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, um, I listened to the guy that trained Tom Kroll in Wholesaling Inc. I was listening to his brother's podcast back when he was training Tom how to do it, and so those were the few that I could find. But anyway, long story. Yeah, I would say just listen to some podcasts, find someone who's doing it in your area, and try to be of value to them so that they can help you out. And so most guys like me will help someone out if they're looking to get started. But I'm not going to do all the heavy work. I'm going to say, go do this. If you do it, then I'll keep helping you.
Yeah,
If I think that you want me to do all the work for you, then we're not going to get very far. And if you don't do the first steps that I tell you to do, I'm not going to tell you anything else.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I had a guy the other day call me trying to apparently my name must be on some list. I think everybody that starts wholesaling seems to call me in my area. And the guy, I told him, I said, "Hey man, this is the kind of deals this is kind of what I'm looking for." And this is, I talked to him like 20, 30 minutes on the phone, and I said, "Man, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I do. This is what I want. Can here's how you can find this. I don't really have time to do this part anymore. If you go
Uh-huh.
do this, man, I will pay you for each one of these." And I said, "If you want to meet in person and talk about this more, I'm happy to." I told the guy that. And I think it's been 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't heard back from him since.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he's quit since then or what. But I mean, I gave him the plan where like, man, I can pay him money, as soon as he
Right.
wants to start. But Brian, I really appreciate you being doing this with me this morning. I feel like there's a lot of valuable information here that agents can learn from, either about the wholesaling business or just the real estate business in general. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah, my pleasure.
if I know you're in Greenville, if somebody had a deal or something they were trying to look to get rid of, how could they get in touch with you, or is there a way to easily get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can contact me on Facebook. You can email me. It's Forest Creek Investments at gmail.com. You can give me a call. I'm pretty easy to find. Probably Facebook is the easiest way to find me.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope to talk to you soon, Brian.
All right, thanks, Jason. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Bye.